Well, it's now 10:30, and it's time for Brainstorming the Human Connection, brought to you by the South Dakota Humanities Council. My name is Lawrence Diggs. I will be the inquisitor today and asking questions, and hope that you'll have questions too, because this is an interactive program. And what that means is that the program really is about sharing ideas, not just about listening passively. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But we feel like you'll get the most out of this if you participate, if you ask questions, ask for clarifications, share some insights if you've participated in something similar, or just because it's supposed to be a conversation, and it's supposed to be brainstorming. It's supposed to be searching out new ideas. We're going to be talking about a subject that we've talked about quite a bit before on this show, and that's murdered and missing Indigenous women. I don't think we can talk about that enough, but we're going to be talking about, just because it's such a big problem and it doesn't get a lot of coverage, but we're going to be talking about it in a bit of a different way today. We're going to be talking about something that people are doing about it, raising awareness, and getting people to do something and be actually involved in the process. So, if you practice something and you do something and you're involved with something on a tangible level, it becomes a little bit more of you than if it's just something that you pass over in a news clipping or something like that, or just hear it on the radio. And the Red Ribbon Skirt Society has been involved with this issue for a while. And we have with us today Lily Mendoza, who is going to be talking to us about the kind of things that the Red Ribbon Skirt Society does. Welcome, Lily.
Thank you.
So let's first start off, Lily, by telling people who you are. Give us some kind of elevator speech so we have a sense of who we're talking to.
Right. Well, my name is Lily Mendoza. I am an enrolled member of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe. And I've lived in the Black Hills here for 35 years. This is where I raised my children, my grandchildren, and soon to be great-grandchild. And I am the founder of the Red Ribbon Skirt Society, founded in 2016 here in Rapid City. And I felt the need to do that based on some research that I had begun to do in the area of missing and murdered Indigenous women. And so that's how I founded the organization, based on that research and based on the need really to help families in community, mothers, families, grandmothers of those that are victims of violence. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I decided to do that.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the Red Ribbon Skirt Society does and has done?
Right. Our main focus is to provide education, awareness, and to help the families. That's our main focus. And so, having done that since 2016, we've really grown into that. And so we do provide a lot of education and training to presentations to across the Northern Plains. We've gone into Minnesota, into Minneapolis, and done education awareness trainings to churches, to schools. We've done this with universities across the Northern Plains, and just kind of tried to be a force out there to make sure that individuals know about the crises that we're all, dealing with, and awareness to know that this is really happening in their community. And the bigger picture too in all of this is really working with the families as they process through that grief.
So if we're looking for the kinds of things looking at the kinds of things that you're doing, right, talk to us a little bit about how that actually impacts the individual families. Can you give us any kind of stories so that we get let's say a closer look?
Sure, I can share a story. I can share a
Sure,
story. I have a lot of
sure.
stories.
Yeah.
I think what I'm going to do is share a story about Elizabeth Rubidoux and her daughter, Richenda Rubidoux, who was 11 years old when she was murdered. Okay. In 2016, I had contacted the mom and had sent her a message. I found her information on Facebook page. And so I did contact Elizabeth and just kind of a cold contact, I guess like a cold phone call. And I had said to her, Elizabeth, how are you doing? This is Lily with the Red Ribbon Skirt Society. And of course, she answers back to me, who are you? Okay. And so I just kind of explained a little bit more to her, just kind of shared, I understand her feelings of loss, especially having lost a child, because I've lost a child. Okay. And she had gotten back to me and said, nobody has asked me that in 28 years. Okay. And so for me, understanding that grief, and so I began to, visit with her, invite her up to Rapid City when we had events going on to be a part of that. And she went from a person sitting there in her home, just full of grief. Okay. She is now able to speak and have
Mhm,
a voice for her daughter, you know,
mhm,
and her daughter was murdered when she was 11 years old. She had
mhm,
gone to spend the night with some friends. She didn't come back. And so they began to search for her and they found her, murdered, raped, under a tree. So those are the kinds of really actually the families that the Red Ribbon Skirt Society really builds relationships with, so that we can help support them. Really, really. And once we begin to work with these families, they become part of our family. They really do. And a lot of the mothers and the grandmothers, they become part of our society as well.
mhm. When people uh, get involved with your group, tell us a little bit about the kinds of ways that you interact with them in a
Sure.
way that helps that grief. What are some of
Right.
the things you do?
One of the things we do is just act like family to them, and we operate as a society of women. It's
Mm,
different from working within an organization. Our hours aren't 9 to 5. Okay.
mm,
We're 24/7. I do get a lot of messages from families at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And I always respond to those messages, of course. And one of the things that I always say to them, because you're really dealing with, and I know what that feels like at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when you wake up as a parent. You
mm,
know, what I say to them is tomorrow will be a better day. Okay.
mm,
And having them involved in society keeps them busy, keeps them really busy, their minds busy. And I know what that's like. I think every parent or grandparent knows what that feels like when you're sitting there in silence.
mm,
So this gives a lot of those families an opportunity to be active, to really give that back to them, to say, you do have a voice, and we want to hear that voice. And
mm,
so say for example, two of the mothers, they have started a support group. They need it. They need that. And so they've started that support group, and then we'll slowly be reaching out to other families and invite them into that setting as well. Okay.
mm, mm,
Um, they often speak. They go to conferences. They sit on panels. They speak to the issue.
mm,
Anything that we need for the society, they're ready to be on board for that. So they really do act as society women would, and they really are bringing out that matriarch, that they are matriarchs. They bring that out in the front now because sometimes they don't think that they are,
mm,
because first of all, because when we talk about victims of violence, we're talking about, women, and I guess I can say men, okay, missing and murdered Indigenous people. Um, our self-esteem is really, really low. and our value is no longer there, you know. And so getting back to looking at ourselves as matriarchs, Lakota matriarchs, has really helped them to do this work.
Mhm. In order to get back to, I'm going to try to circle back to this idea of
Right.
self-esteem, because I think that's a key component in the healing process, and I want to talk about that. But we're talking about the Red Ribbon Skirt Society, and it's my uh, understanding that ribbon skirts didn't happen just recently. They've been, they've been around, and they have some kind of traditional um, place before the current crises.
Right,
Okay,
right.
we're talking about. Can you talk about what his traditional role was, and how that played, and how it morphed into, in your particular case, standing for something kind of unique? Not that it's a
Mhm.
bad traditional thing, but I'm trying to get the historical transition into something being used specifically for a specific problem. Can you help me with that?
Sure. And the ribbon skirt is more of a contemporary way that our Lakota women and our indigenous women really show the public and the sacredness of us as women. Okay. We didn't have ribbon skirts, way back when, but we had our traditional regalia, our traditional dresses that we used to wear, right? And of course, that was taken away from us. That was taken away when our families were put into boarding schools. They were literally stripped of those items, and made to dress in the little, school dresses, and the little loafer shoes. So the moccasins were taken away. And for those out there that I'm sure you know about that movement, and the children that have, they can find in um, church-run schools as well. There's a lot of information about that. Okay. So the movement, with the ribbon skirt really is reflective of us kind of bringing that back and showing the sacredness of women and how important we are within our culture. And so we really do encourage, when we go out and speak, when we show up in court, we wear our ribbon skirts. And we call it the Red Ribbon Skirt Society because red is really the color that the spirits can see. Okay.
Mm.
So when we're out there doing these sorts of events, we really are, we know that the women that have gone on, and we truly believe this, that have passed on, they're watching us, you know, and especially when we're working with their families. So we really need to be respectful of that.
Mhm. So if I'm understanding you right, the idea of the red ribbon skirt is to be seen by the ancestors, to be seen by those who have gone forth, while you're also uh, being seen by the folks that's still here.
Right.
Would
And
that
we have
be?
a presence. We have a presence.
Mhm.
When we walk into a courtroom, everybody notices. Okay.
Mhm.
And that becomes our responsibility to let those individuals out there know we're here. We have a voice and we're watching,
Mhm.
you
So
know.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're fine.
Oh, so okay, so if I'm just trying to get clarification here now. So if I'm understanding, the Ribbon Skirt Society is about having support for women, particularly as relates to the missing and murdered Indigenous women.
Well, I would say, I have to say, it encompasses more than that. Okay.
Okay, okay.
So it's just not about the movement.
Mm,
It's about, like, if you go to a graduation, you're going
mm,
to see young girls, women in ribbon skirts. Okay. Any of those kinds of gatherings or honorings, or anytime, any of those honorings or memorial,
mm,
the women are going to come in those skirts, you
mm,
know. because it's really showing honor to our cultural tradition,
Mm,
to the non-native, okay,
mm,
as well, and educating,
mhm.
so it goes
So,
beyond just MMIW.
so would it be incorrect to say it's a kind of an honor society in a way? I mean, in the sense of like people join that and they represent something special, or how? I'm just
Are you
trying to
talking?
get a mental picture.
Okay, so you're talking about the Red Ribbon Skirt Society, correct?
Yes, yes,
Right.
correct. Yes.
Okay. You know what? When I first began, when I founded the society,
Mm,
I had talked to another individual friend of mine and trying to think about what can we call this? Okay. Well, first of all, we wanted to be women of a society,
mm,
because you don't see very many societies anymore, and we wanted to be able to function and operate as a society. And so part of that was, well, we came up with this name, which we felt very appropriate for our society. And so getting back to, we're not going to put ourselves out there that we're special. We're not special.
mm,
Okay.
mm,
Everything that we do is responsibility to our community and to our people.
mm,
So we never want to put ourselves on a pedestal that
mm,
we are special. We are not special. We're
mm,
responsible.
mm,
Okay.
mm,
So the society, the women in our society all have a role. They all have a role. You
mhm,
know, we have one of our women that is a sewer. She sews. So
mm,
if we have women in our society, and I'm just going to share with you, not just Native women, okay? Non-Native women are also in our society,
mm,
with the understanding that the Indigenous women are going to lead the way,
mm,
but we also need your support.
mm,
Okay.
mhm,
And so we have a person in our society that's a writer. Okay.
mm,
So if
mm,
we need something to be written up, we can, depend on her to, hey, we need this written up. Can you help us with this? And
mm,
she can take that lead. Okay. We have a young woman in our society that carries the drum for us, a hand drum.
mm,
And so she'll be at the gala and she will have the hand drum so that people can, pay attention and hear that, because our drum is so sacred. So she'll be on playing that, not playing that drum, but hitting the drum,
mm,
so people have awareness about that, because it's such a sacred thing to us as people.
mm,
Okay. So
mm,
everybody has a role in the society.
mhm,
Women come and go, and
mm,
that's fine.
mm,
Because what we do, I don't like to say hard work. It's
mm,
heart work.
mm, mm,
And we also need to take care of ourselves as well. And
mm,
so we all have a role. We all have a role.
mhm. How does one go about joining or becoming a part of the Red Ribbon Skirt Society?
Right. Well, my role as an elder within the society is to watch. Okay. I've always done that, to watch people. So my role is to watch people, how they walk. You know, what do they do in this community?
Mhm,
And so there'll be times when I will run into somebody and they'll say, "Hey, what about the Red Ribbon Skirt Society?" And I would share with them what we do. And sometimes I might say, "Hey, why don't you come along and join us?" Or sometimes I'll just let it go. You know, that has become my role. That has become my role forever, you know. And if somebody asks, "Hey, I'd really like to be a part of that," okay, that's great. What can you offer? What can you do to help the families? And
mm,
usually somebody has something to offer.
mm,
Okay. And like I shared before, people will come and be a part of it. And even the ones I invite, and then some will walk away. Okay. And that's fine. That's
mm,
totally fine,
mm,
you know, because it's difficult. It's very, very, very difficult. And more on maybe some of the women that are a part of the society, they're having problems, you know, and they need to heal themselves. Okay, because we know we can't help others if we can't heal ourselves either, you know. So it's not a fill out an application, those sorts of things, because we do operate as a society. That's just how it works.
Okay, so I'm gonna open it up to the rest of our esteemed panel here for a while, and I want to remind everyone that this is an interactive program. We have added a few prompting questions. It's not like these are the questions we want you to ask, but it'll give you some kind of ideas about the questions, and maybe spark your own version of that question. We put those in the chat. And to get to the chat, if you go down to the bottom of your screen, I'm assuming your screen looks like mine, but I'm on a Mac and I don't have a PC, so I'm just assuming that's the way it looks everywhere since this goes over Google. I mean, over the internet. Look at those questions. Maybe that'll spark some questions. But do you have questions, experiences, interaction, clarification, whatever? This is your life. This is a time for you to add to the program. So anybody, everybody, but not all at once. Anybody? Okay, go ahead, Annie.
I'd like to jump in. Lily, hi. This is Annie. We've met a couple of times, but I've introduced myself to you a couple of times. But I wanted to ask you again about healing spaces. When I would visit your Dragonfly bookstore in downtown Rapid City, the upstairs was just a beautiful space that me as a non-member and outside of this grieving community would visit, and it was a very healing place, a very special place for people to hold space for their grief. And I could feel that when I would be invited to visit it. And I was just wondering, with that absence of the bookstore now, are there places that you've created where people, that hold space for the grief and are filled with those wonderful items, elevating the women and representing the women who have been murdered and missing?
Right. Thank you for that question, because we do so many things. I'm glad you brought that up. And we do have what we call our healing room, for those of you that don't know that. And when I move my business, okay, it goes with me. Okay. So when I was at Racing Magpie, the healing room was there. When I was downtown, the healing room was there with me. Because it really does need to be cared for. And in that room, just to share with everybody, we have in that room red dresses, probably 83 plus red dresses in that room. And on those dresses, then we had the names of the women, not only in South Dakota, but from all over the United States. People have stopped in to put a name on that dress. Okay. And so people can come in there and they could put names on the dresses. We have like this little tag that they can write the names on and put them on the dresses. Okay. And the other thing that we have in there is an altar where families can come in and they can place tobacco or medicinal, items on there. If they'd like to do that, they can put pictures in there. They can spend time in there in prayer. And so since I had closed my store downtown, I needed to find a home for it. Okay. And the Waterfront Gallery in Pier, the owner, Jennifer, had come down to the bookstore and had seen it. And when she found out that it was now kind of boxed up, okay, she offered to put it up in her gallery. Okay. So we took advantage of that. Yes, of course. So down at the Waterfront Gallery in Pier, that's where the room is at right now. And what we're trying to do is find space again here in Rapid City to bring it home, only because the room was also used for ceremonies. It's really used for ceremonies and prayer during COVID, when families couldn't get onto the reservation to go to services. So we used that room for a prayer room, and families were coming in, like maybe from California, from the East Coast, gathering in that space where we could pray for their lost one. Because of course, at that time, and I think all you couldn't get onto the reservation for any sort of a service. So we need to have it back in Rapid, and I'm trying to figure that out, because I also need to spend time in there. I also need time to go in there and smudge on a regular basis and do prayers on a regular basis, and just to have access, so that's what we're trying to work on, getting it home here now again. But it's open to the public down there as well.
I
But thank you for
I,
that
I
question.
actually visited that gallery, and that space is a very beautiful space. There it is, right there, and it is. You do get a feeling that that's a special place, and you can also see some of the red ribbon skirts there on the image that Colby put up. I don't know that words or even a picture could do justice to the feeling of that room. So if you are in Pierre, you might want to go by that gallery. She does hold it. I will say she does hold it in a respectful place. I mean,
Oh yeah.
she makes a point to tell you that that's the gallery, and there's this space because we think that we need to have this space, but this space is not like kind of gallery-ish,
No.
Yeah, so she makes the lady who runs it, she and her husband, I guess it's her husband,
Yeah.
they make a point that this is a special place, and so I think you'll feel that they hold it as a special place, and they expect people who go there to be respectful of it. So it does have a special place.
Right. And one of the things that she does have a sign up, no pictures. Okay.
Yeah.
That as well. And if for some reason her gallery is closed, anybody has to do is just call her up and say, especially the families, we'd like to visit the space, and she will run down and she will open it. Just a couple months ago, we had one of our young women that was murdered in Pierre. And so I went down there. Some of us, the society, went down there just to be present for court. So when they were done with court, we went down to the healing room, and the family put her name on a dress, and we just sat there in prayer.
Vicki, you look like you had a burning question, and I'm burning to hear it.
I have a bunch of them. I've been asking this question before. So most of the violence to women, is that done by non-natives or native men? I'm assuming it's mostly men. And how do the men respond when there's a whole room full of women with red dresses? I would think that they would know that as a male, this is going on with a lot. I mean, they would have to acknowledge it. Do they shy away, or do they participate with you? Because some men might call it men bashing. So is it white men, native men? Is there anything that addresses, do you ever address the men about this issue? Because it's usually not done by females.
Right. Well, I can just say men in general. Okay. I can't say it's mostly native men, it's mostly non-native men, it's men in general. Okay. Now I have done a lot of talks and conferences where I go in and I do training, awareness, and I do get that question. Well, what about the men? Okay. How do you actively how do they participate in this? And not necessarily the killing of the women, but what can we do to support? And I always come back with, that's your responsibility. That is your responsibility. If you are in a position to be working for a program, and then you need to create those spaces where men can come in and heal, because not all men are bad men, okay? And we do have men that they go into those rooms and they feel the grief and they respect those dresses. My sons are part of our society. Okay, they're part of our movement. My son is actually the president of our nonprofit. And he actually, I mean, they support it. They believe in it. And I know there are many men across the state of South Dakota and beyond that support the MMIW movement. They do, you know. It's the ones that are committing the crimes. You know, what do you do about them? Okay. Is your community doing something about them? Are they being taken to court? Okay. Are they being put in jail for these crimes that they're committing? And right now, just one of the other things that we do is we're present in the court. We go to court with those mothers. And it's very devastating to see sometimes how the court system works. We walk away from there feeling really down. What's going to happen now? You know, but that's how our system works, you know. We spend a lot of time within the court system with attorney generals, state's attorneys, victims assistants. And when we walk into those spaces, a majority of them are men. Like I can say that, okay. And so they have to get used to really listening to Lakota women. You have to get really used to that. Because we do have a voice and we kind of do know what we're talking about, okay? So it's teaching the systems about this, you know? And most of the time when we go into settings with the victim's mother or grandmother, they are so overwhelmed with grief. They don't know the questions to ask. They do not understand what they're asking them. So we sit there and record, and then we ask the questions. I don't understand what that means. So we're learning their language. We really are learning language. So it's all about education. You know, I mean, there's been times when I've talked about misogyny in a room full of men. And yeah, they are bothered by that, you know. But if we look back on our traditions, if you really look back on it, I have spoken to elders about that. You know, a lot of our women were making the decisions. You know, when they would have counsel, all those men would leave counsel and they would go back to their wives. Okay. And their wives would counsel them on what, you know, well, what do you know, they would talk to them about this. And they would end up going back to counsel and making some of those decisions based on what their wife had said. So we're really kind of getting back to that, especially within our society. Does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Sharon, you had a question.
Thank you.
I had a comment in the chat about if this is violence also, if it also includes violence within the home. But there's a really interesting comment put up by Gabrielle, and she says or writes in, there are judges in South Dakota who will not allow ribbon skirts in courtrooms.
I don't know that, because every time we go to court, we wear our skirts. You know what? This is quite interesting. Okay. We are actually going to be going to court next week. For one of the grandmas asked us to be there. Okay. And they had all kinds of requirements on there. Don't wear anything that has anything that says on your t-shirt. You know, you don't wear a hat. There's all those kinds of requirements, you know, when you go into court. There's nothing on the list about not wearing ribbon skirts. And, you know, here's the thing, that's what I wear every day. You know, that's really what I wear every day. So I don't think that's out there. And I think that if it is out there, I would totally question it and call the judge on that for sure. You know, that's what I wear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, kind of thing.
A lot of things have to be tested. And as you pointed to earlier, Lily, a lot of things people just never had that happen before, and they're uncomfortable with the unusual. their brain doesn't know what to do with that extra piece of paper that they don't have a file for. And so their immediate reaction is to reject it. And so you'll get almost anything you do, when you do it the first time, you'll get somebody who objects.
Right.
The thing is like, okay, yeah, we're going to keep doing it, or we need to come to some resolution as to, an understanding about this and how does that somehow cause a problem. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, well, here in Rapid City, they actually, they're inviting us into those rooms. Okay. And they're really validating the work that we do. And, just, going to court on, I think it's Tuesday, we've been invited to be there. We haven't to support that family. Okay. So we're really building those relationships with the system, here in Rapid City. And sometimes it's not always a perfect system, but we're trying, I think between the both of us, we're trying to find a balance here. And being invited into those settings, which never used to happen, okay, that's really a step forward for all people, for all Lakota women,
But and I think that really points the way to a solution for lots of things. The first no is just to be expected. It's when you get the 2000s no that you could say, well, maybe we should do this different or take a different tack. But you almost have to expect that people will reject some new thing, even when it's clearly good for them. I mean, either that or you've never had a 2-year-old.
Right. And I just want to share with you, I want to share with you, and sometimes I kind of get on, this isn't new. Okay.
Yeah.
This is not new for us in the state of South Dakota. This is not new.
Yes.
And the thing is we're here. We're not going to go away. This is our homeland.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like, okay, well, if we have to re-educate you, because I've been in Rapid City for 35 years. Okay. When I first came to this community, we're still kind of working on some of those things that I was working on in 1991. And I'm going, wow, when is this going to change?
Right.
When is this going to change? But
when I say new,
don't give up.
Yes, exactly. And when I say new, I mean new to that individual, not new to the whole problem is not new. But for some people, I mean, when we think of like the history of how we learn about the culture just in South Dakota and what's happened here, there's a lot of stuff that's new because while it should have been taught, it was not. And your family, if they went through the same school system, they didn't know about it. And a lot of the people who it affected very directly, often their families didn't talk about the trauma. They wanted to like skip over some things. Sometimes they did, but a lot of times, you ask people about the same kind of things you think would be taught in the public school. Nobody seems to know, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it. It means in fact, if anything, it means that we should just sort of go on overdrive because we got some catching up to do. But at least from my experience, I find that a lot of stuff is that people actually don't know, or they have a misrepresentation or a different representation than I have. So I feel like, okay, if I can bring that to the table, fine.
No, and people don't want to know. They want to turn the other way. Okay. Because if we were looking at, we look at, I raised my children here. Okay. My children have children, and it's how you're raised, and so, I can say that some of my children who are in their 40s, they know some people here, friends or people that they've gone to school with. Okay. Some of those individuals say really bad things about Native people. That's how they were raised. Okay. So we're really looking at, I don't know what the term you would call it. I really don't know that term off the top of my head. But to me, and this is just me, I don't tolerate it. Okay. My children don't tolerate it. I have grandchildren whose skin is not brown. Okay. And they will sit in a classroom and they can hear non-Native students say horrific things about Native people. Okay. They know to stand up for themselves and stop the behavior. Okay. So me, I just don't tolerate it. And I don't tolerate that kind of inappropriate victimization either with, you know, the families that we work with for MMIW. I'm just not going to do it. I won't deal with it. I'm not going to do it, you know. And I think that's part of what we're doing too as the society is making these women, working with these women to be stronger. You know, they're so deep in grief, is to somehow be stronger, to be that voice. And I think that's very, very important. That's the important work that we really do as well.
I wanted to get back to something that Vicky.
We're getting off on something else here. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to get back to something Vicky was talking about before, as far as like getting men involved. And I think one of the ways to get more men involved is one to recognize that almost all of those, well, I would say all of them have a mother, and many of them have sisters, women who are cousins, who are dear friends, or, you know, connections. And I think the men who have respect and who have relationships with women, you can start with them, because they have other friends, and then you know, but they need something tangible to do. And and as Lily was saying, okay, we can say to those men, okay, you figure it out, but a lot of times they don't even know how to think about the problem, because it's the first time they've heard about it, or maybe they heard about it but didn't know how it affects them. So I always feel like, okay, if like doing this kind of program, having these conversations with people like Lily, when I learn something, then I can take that to other men. I can have a different kind of conversation with them than if I'm speaking for women, but I don't understand their feeling, or I've never been told by women how they feel. Then I'm representing women, and I'm really representing my thoughts as a man, but I don't have women's input. And I feel like that there's something missing in the conversation that I would have with men. So I would say women have a role in educating men.
To an extent. So say, for example, we hung red dresses. I hate to say that word hung. We displayed dresses on the grounds at the Journey Museum yesterday. And we had men helping us. We had men helping us, which is a great thing. And in the past, we have had, when we would hang all of our dresses, like 80 some dresses or more, on the grounds at the Journey Museum, and I had 10 to 15 men helping us. They knew their part. Okay. They knew their part and what they needed to do in this. And so they did that for us. Okay. And so there are men out there that really truly believe and back this movement, because they know how the women are suffering. Okay. They really do. And I think what happens to most men, especially when we're talking about Lakota men and some of the non-native men, they really do understand how to operate within our society system. Okay. You know, what was amazing for me to see, and this is just getting back to traditions. We went in to meet with the Attorney General about a month ago on a case with one of the mothers, and she brought her sisters with her. Okay. And those sisters brought with them their significant other. When we walked into that space, all of the women sat around the table, all the men sat around us. Okay. And that was, to me, that was an amazing historical moment. And the person that we were sitting with, he didn't even know what he was witnessing. Okay. So really, our men that are within this movement, they know what their responsibility is. Okay. They know that they're behind us to support us. And it becomes those men that are good people, good men, good fathers, good brothers, good grandfathers. It's their responsibility to work with the other men. And they know that. They know that. Okay. You know, that's one of the things that my son, you know, has done over the past week. He wants to make sure that there are men that are at that gala, okay, that are working for justice for our women. He wants them to be present, to see what we do as a society and to support those women in that space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Lily,
Excellent.
can you speak to the prevention, like getting out in the schools and talking with the students and stuff,
Right.
and what's being given to them for information so they don't, end up a statistic? Do you do
Right.
some of that prevention and advocacy work in the schools?
Right. We have also a young society, women's society in Minneapolis. And they do it all the time. They go into schools and they talk about MMIW. They go into churches and talk about MMIW. One of the things that we do as a society, and I've done over the past years as well, is go into schools. I went down to American Horse School and they asked me to do talk about MMIW from K through high school age. Okay. And I'm going, how am I going to do this for kindergartners? Okay. But here's the thing that happened. Okay. When I got in front of those little kids, I immediately knew they already know about this because a lot of the victims are members of their families. So this is something that's not new to them. So it was a little bit easier to talk with them about that, to give them a safe space, to write some things down and hang on a dress. Okay. And then just to kind of encourage them, you have teachers in your school, you have counselors in your school. So if you really feel bad after this presentation, go talk to them. The other thing then was talking to the older kids and saying, when you see these little kids out there playing, you need to keep an eye on them because you never know when somebody's passing through that reservation, they could easily take one of those little kids. So you need to pay attention to that. You also need to pay attention to your classmates who are girls. Don't be letting them walk home at night after basketball practice, those sorts of things. You need to pay attention to that. So we get back to what can we do for men? Okay. So really kind of putting that in place for them, as young adults to start doing that as far as helping in prevention. Some of the other things that we remind if we're working with young women, and I've done this with girls club, and it's like, if ever, always walk together. And if some of the things, if you ever get thrown into a vehicle, tear out some of your hair so that they can find the DNA. Hide your phone. And then there's also that tracking on your phone. I think it's 360 that you can track them, kids wherever they go, and it's really talking to those young people about awareness. Be aware of your surroundings. That's a huge thing that we talk about. And we also talk about, even individuals my age, because a lot of women my age too, we're being taken. We're being human trafficked. Not so much, I have to laugh, not because of because of how attractive we are. But because of they harvest our body parts. Okay. And it's just really, really being aware. And it's not like it used to be. It really is not. I mean, my grandchildren, when they got to feed the dog, they never go out by themselves, and we always watch them from the door. So it's, really, really keeping an eye. And if you see something, say something. If you're driving down the street, if you see something, call it in. I don't know if I answered your question or not. We don't do a lot of carry around. Maybe mace is safe, but sometimes those kind of other items that they might use actually could the perpetrator could turn it around on them. Okay. So it's just really being aware of your surroundings.
I think that, Tara, you bring up a very important point, and it's something that not only a society or a group could do, but we can do between ourselves. And I like those kind of granular programs. The more that we know, that if we hear, hey, you could do this or you could do that, or when we see someone not doing that, then we can be aware of that and we can share it with, let's say, if you're at a party and somebody's going to leave early, you can say, hey, look, or are you going to feel, or do you feel safe? Or how can we make sure that you're safe going home? And then we can share those things. And as we do, more people hear it and more people do it. So it becomes part of our culture. And that, and that is, in a sense, that serves as a deterrent too, because now people realize, oh, you can't just do it like you used to do it, because people will find you, and you might be lucky if the police get there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just being really careful and aware, I mean, we've had several instances where young girls have gone to go babysit just across the street, blocked down, and they've been taken and they've been murdered. So it's not it really isn't a perfect system for us to say, do this, do this, do this, do this. But at least we can start to begin to work with our young people, our children, grandchildren, and, as a grandmother, when I go into a setting, I watch all the kids that are there. I watch if somebody's paying a lot of attention, and just not my kids, other children, because that becomes our role and it becomes our responsibility.
We talked about a little bit about the gala that came up already in our conversation. I understand the tickets are all sold, so this is all kind of like a thing, but not a thing. But talk to us about the gala and how it came about, what its purpose is, and what do you hope to do as a result of it?
Right. Well, this is our second annual gala here in Rapid City. And the idea came about from one of our society members. She said, have you ever done a gala for a fundraiser? And I went, not really. Okay. It's a lot of work, but besides that point. So we decided to do this for our annual fundraiser. And last year we sold out again. And so the monies that are raised during the gala help us help the families. We might help them with funeral expenses, traditional wake services, memorials, maybe fuel or gas back and forth from the different reservations if they have to go there and, see their family. And one of the things that we actually have used some of our funding for is to bring her home, we call it. We had an incident where we had a young woman that was deceased. I think she was in Utah at the funeral home, and they wouldn't release her because they still owed money to bring her home. Okay. And so I talked to the funeral director here on Pine Ridge and said, just bill me. Okay. Let's get her home. So we help with those sorts of things. We had a young woman in San Diego that had gone missing, and we helped with expenses for one of our society members to fly out there and find her and bring her home. Okay. So we provide those sorts of things. And of course, it also bases on how much money, we raise for the year. And so this year, like I said, we are sold out again this year. We also have a silent auction there. We have this year we're going to be having, well, Joseph Marshall can't make it because he's getting his honorary doctorate at SDSU. So we're going to give him a break on that. But we will have copies of Sing for the Red Dress that anybody that has bought a ticket or participating in the gala will receive a copy of that book. And it really is a story on MMIW, a novel. We have Jennifer White, the artist from Sioux Falls, who does a lot of her artwork, does a lot on women. So she'll be joining us and she'll be doing a live painting. We have Leah Hale, who is a producer who did the film Bring Her Home. And that can be found on, I think is it Minnesota Public Television Broadcasting. And I've actually screened that before. So she'll be joining us. So that's really exciting. We also have Rachel Berg, who is a Lakota artist. She's driving right now from New York. And we have commissioned her to do a sculpture in memory of MMIW, missing and murdered Indigenous women, children, Two-Spirit, because we can't forget the Two-Spirit and the transgender population as well. And so she will have a small scale version of it that we can share at the gala. And so that's really exciting for us to be able to do that. And we will and I think that I have done research on this, and we'll be the first ones in the United States to ever have something like that. So that's really exciting.
Oh,
I think
great.
somebody's raising their hand.
Yeah, guys, go ahead, Sharon.
Go ahead.
Lily, do the
Yes.
lines under your lips signify something like, may I speak well and clearly, or?
Okay. Okay. And that's, people ask me this all the time. The lines represent our sacred ceremonies, the sacred sites, and the 7 women that have gone missing and have been murdered here in the state of South Dakota that I have worked really closely with. And I decided, and I didn't do this lightly. Okay. I've been thinking about it and talked to my children about it. And when I was working with this one family and I was getting ready to call the grandma because they needed money because they were doing search and rescue. So I said, okay, I'm going to call you and let you know the money is available there down at the gas station. Before I even could pick up the phone and call her, I got a call and saying that they had found her. And of course they found her deceased. And I said, well, it's time. I'm going to go do this. Usually when I would go out and speak, I always put a red line there to represent being a voice. This time I decided it's time for me to do the 7 lines, you know. And, you know, I talked to my children about it too. And they said, yeah, Mom, it's time you do that. So that's what that represents. It really does. That's what it represents as well. And just, you know, enough, the family that, I'm actually, the court next Tuesday is for this young girl. So, you know, kind of come full circle for me. And it is sad. It is very, very sad. So yeah, so that's that. And you know, the gala's on Saturday. It's going to be really great. And I think for me, the really important part is we're going to have 8 families there. And it's a time for us to honor them, spend time with them, share a really great meal with them. You know, they get to stay at the hotel and have a really nice place to stay, and for them to kind of come together because they all have this in common. And that just, you know, that really opens up the circle more for the families as well. That's what the gala's
Excellent.
about.
Yeah, okay, great. And I'm hoping that we'll hear more about it next year before all the tickets are sold out.
Well, you know what? We decided to do it every other year. So next year we
Every
will
other
not
year,
have a
okay.
gala. Yeah. So we kind of
Okay.
decided to do that
Okay.
because next year I'm going to focus on raising monies for our statue. We want to be able to have it up here in Rapid City in 2025. And we are calling her Justice.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have dignity in South Dakota. Now we're going to have justice.
Okay. Excellent. And where will that statue be placed?
You know what? There's a couple places that we've been visiting with them about this. And so it's not confirmed. But the place that we will be putting it is going to be the perfect, makes sense kind of place for her to be.
Okay.
Especially with her name being Justice.
Okay.
So that's a little hint.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a little hint.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's nice that justice finds a place, any place, you know.
Right, right, exactly.
But
She's
yeah,
quite beautiful. I haven't seen her yet, but I hear she's quite beautiful. So
okay, good. Well, this has been a very interesting conversation. I would be remiss if I didn't ask, are there any things that you feel that we should have covered that we might be able to cover in the next couple of minutes?
you know what? I don't really think so. I think we covered a lot. I mean, there are a lot of things that we do as a society. You know, we're constantly doing things around awareness. I just quickly I do want to share with you. Within the last month or couple of months, just to kind of get an idea, we have been in the courtroom almost every week for our women. So if you can kind of think about that, you know, it just never stops. It just never stops. And this, you know, and we do our best. You know, to work in this area and educate awareness around the epidemic. But there are so many of them. It's really heartbreaking.
It is. And I think that that gives us all something to do. Something, we can't, none of us can do everything, but all of us can do something. If we all pitch in and just do something, we'll move closer to justice than we have been or are now. Thank you very much, Billy, for joining us. Thanks everyone else for joining us. We will see you next time, same place, same station. Goodbye.
Thank you.